Hi, it's Anna Haferman, and today I want to talk about the Intarsia Carriage with the LK150 and show you a couple things it does in addition to picture knitting. And before I do that, I'd like to thank everyone who donated to the Buy Me a Coffee link that I put in the description. I really appreciate your support, and it really does help me to make more videos. So thank you very much. So basically, the Intarsia Carriage does knits by laying yarn over the needles rather than coming through the carriage. So the yarn is feeding from the floor. I just have a ball of yarn on the floor. And so to do a row, first of all, I already have some knitting on here, but my needles are in position B, and I need to get them to position C for Intarsia. So without any yarn on it, if the needles are in position B, I can go across once and those needles will come out to position C with their latches open, so that I can put my yarn across with my tail end here near the carriage and do a row of knitting. And then when I get to the other side, I can come back and just laying the yarn over again, just do another row. And I can keep doing that and knit a large panel of stockinette, or I can do some other things. So first of all, I am watching my needles every time to make sure those latches are open, because if one closes, I will drop that stitch. So I use this little letter opener, which I can just go across and make sure those latches are open. This one has a cutter, so I can use it to cut yarn as well, and a magnet, so I can just stick it on my table so I have it anytime I want it. If you don't have one of those, you can cut a credit card in half, and this is one of the oldest machine knitting tricks in the book. You just cut a credit card in half diagonally and you end up with two of these, and then you can do that. So either way, but it is a good thing to have when you're using this carriage, because those latches definitely need to stay open. So then I come across, but now I can, and this is what we mostly think of this carriage as being used for, I can lay in different colors in the row. So again, I'm feeding from the floor, and or from little bobbins with yarn on them, and these kind of keep the yarn, it's wound up but it keeps it tensioned, so that does help. So I can take a second color of yarn and place it on the needles, and then suppose I'm doing a blue rectangle in the middle of some white. I'm going to put some more white in, but I need another ball of white or bobbin of white with whatever I'm doing. So what I'll do is put that over these needles, and so now when I knit, these stitches will be white, these will be blue, these will be white. So I knit across, knit across and go like that, and so that's what happened. So when I'm coming back, I can come there, cross the yarn, and do the same thing, but I'm crossing these yarns so that I won't have a hole in my knitting. So, and then again, come back, and I'm making sure those latches are open. I'm either visually making sure, or I'm inspecting it, or I'm just running my credit card or tool across to make sure everything's open. It's very important. So then when I'm coming back this way, I cross the other way. And go that way. So now I'll do one more row. I'm making sure those latches are open, feeding my yarn, and crossing them so I don't get holes in the knitting. And then just running the carriage across to knit that in. And so usually if you do this, you would have a chart, and you would make sure you'd have all your yarn wound first and have a chart to do whatever your picture you wanted to do was. So suppose I'm going to close that up now. Just use this white and go across. So now, and this little picture is very simple, but you can do something as intricate or as simple as you want. And so I have no floats there. I will have to weave those in, but I have no floats on the back of the knitting. So that's what we think of when we think of Intarsia. However, there's a few other things that this carriage will do, and in some cases it works better than the main carriage. So first of all, say I want to do some stripes. I've got some blue, and I'm feeding from a ball of yarn that's just sitting on the floor, or a cake of yarn. So all I have to do for stripes is put in whatever color yarn I want, go back, and then when I want to get back to the white, all I need to do is pick it up and go across, and I'm still watching to make sure those latches are open, and then do a couple rows, and then I can go back to blue very easily. And this is, I think, faster than if I had two yarns in my main carriage and I was having to thread and unthread every row. So that's, for stripes, this carriage works great. And not only can I do two color stripes, it's really easy to pick up a third color of yarn, or a fourth or a fifth, and just add that in. So I can do some red, come back, and then go back to blue. And come back. I'm watching those latches to make sure they're open. And then I can add the white again, and so on. So you can do any number of colors quite easily. So one thing though you will have to keep in mind is when you carry the yarn up the side, you will have long floats. So if you do anything longer than a couple, you'll probably want to cut the yarns and tie them off. But I think that's still simpler than switching yarns in the carriage and having to park them each time and change. And three colors with the yarn in the carriage is kind of challenging. So, but then, so that's stripes. So then the next thing we can do is some patterns we can do with this carriage. So for this one, I'm going to do the pattern I did in the bubble beanie, which was the snowball beanie, which was a tuck stitch with white, and then I had a pink background. But I'm just going to do that with, I'm going to use the main carriage and the Intarsia carriage as a second carriage. So what I will do now is thread my main carriage with whatever I want my background color to be, and I'm going to use green. So I'm going to have green as the background, and then I'm going to use the Intarsia carriage to do the tuck stitches. So if you are unfamiliar with this pattern, you can look in the snowball beanie pattern, and I show you how to do it with one carriage. So this way, and I've got my pattern already marked out to make this a little easier for me. So I put the needles to hold that I want to tuck, and weight it down a little, and I see one of my needles closed. I want to make sure it's open. And you'll notice this carriage doesn't have any levers on it, like no Russell levers to put the carriage in hold. That you don't have to. The carriage knows if you pull a needle to hold that you want to hold that needle. So we'll start with white. So I'm going to do the snowballs in white, and so I'm doing those with the Intarsia Carriage, and I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4 rows like that. And again, I'm making sure that every time those latches are open. These needles pulled to hold don't need to be open because they're not knitting anyway. Just focus on those. And then do 2 rows with the green as your background color. And then I go and pick up the opposite needles. And again, if this seems unfamiliar, I show it in much greater detail and a different way with that carriage in the Snowball Beanie video. So now I've knit these the last time I did those 2 knit rows, so they're in position B again. So I need to get them to position C with the Intarsia Carriage, and I can do that very easily just by going across once. And then I'm going to pull this over to this side because my yarn is over here and I don't want to get in the way of that. So then I go and I'm making sure those latches are open. 1, 2, 3. And every time I'm eyeballing those needles to make sure the latches are open. And then I'm coming with my main carriage, and it's set on end, just plain knitting, and I do 1, 2 rows. And now I'm ready for my next selection, and you'll probably want to know, can I use the Needle Beetle? And the answer is yes. You would want to select the needles first that you were going to, that you need selected, because the Needle Beetle works by selecting needles in position C, and the Intarsia Carriage works on position C as well. So if you select them first, go across, then do the Intarsia, come back, then you're all set, and then you're just ready to do your 4 rows and checking those latches to make sure they're open. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then getting my main carriage and doing my 2 rows. So that's pretty easy, and now I've got this 2-color pattern very easily. But suppose I wanted to add another color. Suppose now I want to add a 3rd color to my pattern. I'm going to select the needles that I need, use the Needle Beetle, use the Intarsia Carriage, bring that back to this side, and then I can just add that blue very easily. Get my main carriage and do my 2 rows. Then I can pick up the white yarn. So I'll select Intarsia, come back, and then we'll go with white. And again, I'm making sure those needles are open, the latches are open. 1, 2, 3, 4. and then I get my knit carriage and just knit those off. So that's an easy way to do a different color bubbles. So you could go with blue again, or you could pick up the yellow and you can do any number of colors. And again, you want to watch the floats on the side because they get kind of long. So just determine whether you want to cut your yarn and tie it, or if you want to carry it up the side. It kind of depends on you. So now I'll put the yellow, and again, I'm making sure those latches are open. Get my carriage on the bed. And then the 2 rows of green. So that's pretty easy, and I wasn't having to change yarn and change levers and all that. And I was able to add, well, I guess a 4th color. I could add however many colors very easily, and that's just by using the Intarsia Carriage. So a couple other things that are useful with the Intarsia Carriage are, it's easy to knit, to make, say, a vertical opening in your knitting. Suppose you want a buttonhole, vertical buttonhole, or a keyhole scarf with a hole in it, but it's real easy to do it with this carriage. So first I'll get my needles to the right position. So I'll go from B to C, and I can only do that from B to C without yarn in the feeder. If I tried to do that now, everything would fall off. So suppose I'm doing a vertical buttonhole or something like that. What I'm going to do is, well, first I'll just knit. Suppose I'm knitting along and knitting a few rows. And again, I'm watching those latches to make sure they stay open. And then I want to do the opening in the knitting. So I will go from this side over, say there, and then I'll take another ball of the same color yarn. It can be a big ball of yarn or the little bobbin, depending how much you need, and just hang that. And then I can knit. And now this time when I come back, I'm going to put the yarn to the same position, and I'm not going to cross it because I want there to be an opening in the knitting. So I just knit back. And so now I have an opening in the knitting here. And then if I wanted to close it up, all I need to do is knit back. And so then I would have to weave these ends in at the end, but I have a eyelet or a buttonhole or whatever I'm going to use it for. So one more trick with the Intarsia Carriage. Suppose that I am knitting a project where I need waste yarn and a ravel cord, and let's say I'm using this carriage for my whole project, and then this would be we'll say the green is my waste yarn. So even though I'm using this carriage for my project, if I have my Intarsia Carriage handy and my ravel cord, which I've wrapped on one of these little bobbins, which keeps it nice and not tangled up in the bottom of all your knitting stuff, Not that mine's like that, ha ha. And then you take your Intarsia carriage, which you just have handy somewhere, and do one row to get it to position C, and just hang your ravel cord over, and then you knit that in, and then just put away your Intarsia carriage. You're not going to use it for this project, but you had it handy, so it was really easy to get that ravel cord in without unthreading whatever you needed for that. And then you could just go ahead and come back with your, and you can just go ahead and come back with your main yarn. Let's say the main yarn is the purple. And then finish whatever you're doing. So that's just a simple way to get the ravel cord into your knitting. So let's see what we have here. So I've removed my cast on comb and weights and little clips and everything. So let's see what we've got. I can do that one time and then the next time without getting it tangled. Here's what we have. First of all, we had waste yarn already cast on, and then we knit this little blue rectangle by laying yarn over the hooks. And you see how it has no floats on the back. I do have a few tails I need to weave in, and then kind of pull the yarn a little to close those stitches, but it makes a nice even knit edge picture. Then we did 2 color stripes. We added a 3rd color, which was very easy. We just picked it up, so we can do 3 color, 4 color, however many stripes we want. Then we started patterning, where we were using the main carriage to do the background and the Intarsia carriage to do the tuck stitches. And we can do 2 colors or however many we want. And then we did the buttonhole or keyhole, whatever we're using that for. And then we put in the ravel cord. And so the ravel cord will come out very easily. It was easy to put in, and of course it'll come out really easily. And so that's a few things you can do with the Intarsia carriage that you might not have thought of. And I know a lot of us have these and we don't use them very much, but take it out, dust it off, and see what you can do. There's, I'm sure, other uses for it, but these are just a few I wanted to show you. So thanks very much, and if you like my videos, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.